I can have it all and nothing. I can be it all and nothing. I just feel that resonance in your body. Like it's like a percolating kettle, you know. And so we have to allow for the body to be open and expansive to be able to hold tension. Most of the time we tend to close off and contract when we try and hold tension. But that's actually when we end up going into polarity.
Yo, 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 lovers. Welcome to Sex, Love, and Everything in Between. We're the O'Neills. You're here with Meg and Jacob.
And this is the place we have really uncensored conversations about sex, intimacy, and relationships. We're super excited you're here. Enjoy this episode.
Hey, lovers. Yo, 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 yo. Welcome to this episode. Once again, Meg is not with me today. She is taking another break. I'm interviewing another guest, and in my usual fashion, I want to introduce this person in a way that is unique and personal to me. This is the wonderful Anthea Balfour, and I got to go on a podcast with you recently, probably like a month ago, I think it was, and it didn't really feel like a podcast. It felt like she was looking deeply into all of the parts of me that had not felt loved for a while, and I experienced this really deep, nourishing healing around just the part of me that is a man and that really wants to do good in the world. And some of the ways that you spoke and reflected things back to me was just incredibly nourishing. And it's stuff that I receive in my relationship with Meg, and that's sacred because we're lovers and we've been doing it for 10 years. But to jump on and to experience that level of intimacy with another woman that's platonic, but I could feel your devotional heart in that moment. And I was just like tearing up and crying on the podcast, feeling such a, I was really, I'm not someone who has been known for his receivership capacity when it comes to love, but I really felt safe with you and I really felt like I could trust you. And that's something that I'm continually learning as a man, is to trust women and to allow their love in. So it was an incredible podcast to come along, and I really wanted to share you with our audience and really bring you on to speak to some of these things that we were sharing about and go a little deeper with your work, because I believe in the current landscape, it's so needed to have someone who is willing to traverse the depths and do it in a way that is not necessarily too reckless, but actually has a reverence for what it is that we're co-creating as men, women, and as humans, as a collective.
Yeah. Thank you, darling. That's quite the introduction. And hey, Jacob and Meg's community, thanks for receiving me. This is so cool. It was wonderful. I don't know if you know this, but like I think I mentioned before, like I've followed you and Meg's work since 2017. And so it's really lovely to have seen how you guys have grown as a couple over the last 7 years since I've kind of become aware of the work that you do. And what I really loved and what really brought my attention to you and Meg in particular was the fact that you were a couple doing the work together. In community, obviously, there's the men's work and there's the women's work. And rarely do you actually see the co-creation of us working together. And you and Meg are one of the first couples that I'd seen in the sort of personal development space that were doing it together. And we're seeing the fruits of your labor now, both procreation and creatively. So it's really beautiful.
Yeah, thank you. That is like, it's something that I'm really proud of, and also something that I had to manage early on in my relationship with Meg. Was we started to do a lot of the work together, and then I had to find ways that I was doing the work for myself, not just doing it for our relationship or for her. My people pleaser had a cheeky little way of sneaking in at times. But Drew Wild shared your content with me, and I resonated really deeply with it. But then it was like we were sort of just journeying alongside each other, and it wasn't until like the last couple of months, besides a couple of Facebook comments on each other's posts, that we've really landed in this space. And I think it is, I always like, why didn't these conversations happen early? And I don't think I was ready to have them, but I also think now with what's going on in the world, it's really, really time for us to be speaking and collaborating. And you, as a mentor for both men and women in the realms of like embodied leadership, which I think is like those two words together just hold such weight, and the responsibility of embodied leadership. I think that's, well, I know that that's something that's really, really needed across the board.
Yeah. Like I think I shared with you, like my background is pretty eclectic in that I come from a therapeutic background as a somatic psychotherapist and sexologist, and I started my complementary medicine in functional nutritional therapy actually on the Gold Coast about a decade ago. And it was, so my background had always been corporate previous to that. And so I'd come from like a world of financial management, public relations, marketing communications, all of the very hard, stoic, masculine space. There was like, no room for error. And I loved it in that world. Like I had my parameters that I could move in. And then I can't even recall what happened. I may have had some sort of spiritual experience. But I decided that world was not for me. And so I was already studying functional nutritional medicine at the time. And then I qualified. And actually what happened was I ended up getting made redundant on a new contract that I was at for this financial services agency. And it was there that I started working with women, first of all, in a very, very different way, working with them through their relationship to food. And I decided that I'd study Ayurvedic medicine, which led me to Tantra. And it was really so I was initiated through the left-hand path of Tantra, which ultimately is what we would now, I guess, collectively understand as shadow work. And I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
I didn't put this on. Just do not disturb. Okay. What we now collectively understand as shadow work, but the left-hand path of Tantra, in a very soundbitey way, is meeting all of the scary parts of yourself in the most messed up and disruptive way possible. So, are you into Harry Potter?
Love any mythical thing, all in.
So you know the wardrobe where they have to, like, I can't remember what it's called now, but the wardrobe they have to open.
Yes.
And then their worst fears comes out of the wardrobe.
Yes. That's
basically the left-hand path of Tantra is, so my teacher, Sultan, I love you, Sultan, hello. He met me in a very messy time of my life. So I had a complete identity crisis. My husband and I had just separated our assets. I was on my own for the first time since being a teenager, probably. And I just decided to move from the Gold Coast to Brisbane. And I literally bumped into him having a cigarette. And just like, I don't know who I am. Anyway, and he was there. And English is not his first language. He's Pakistani. And I was crying, and I don't even know what I was saying. But he was like, I'm just gonna sing to you, and and I was like, cool. And for weeks he would just sit with me and say various things, and I'd pick up some stuff, and then I'd go and I would research, which led me to Tantra, which led me to studying somatic sexology. But through working with women as a functional nutritional therapist and understanding our relationship to food and leading me into tantric medicine and the tantric scientist was really understanding that all of our shadows, all of these hidden aspects of ourselves are just part of our inherent nature, trying to find ways to get out. So trying to find ways for expression, ways to be transmuted. And doing shadow work ultimately became my bread and butter as a therapist. And so started off in archetypical work, and interestingly from from working with women in the nutritional space and helping them build a healthy relationship to food and self-image, I opened a holistic health practice called the O Room on the Gold Coast. But actually, because of the connotations of the O Room, I ended up getting a lot of male clients.
Yeah, I get that. I can see how that would attract.
And because it was the first health practice that was actually pleasure-centered. And I was very naive, because I was like, I've learned all these tantric practices, and I went and studied clinically so that I could actually practice and share the knowledge, in a more clinical way. But I actually couldn't advertise, because I was refused to be secretive about the fact that we're talking about sexual energy and sexual transmutation and men's sexual health and women's sexual health. And in fact, my sort of the premise was sex as medicine, and understanding our sexual energy and men and women being complementary opposites was going to be healing to each other, and we needed to understand that. So I was very naive, and so I couldn't advertise anywhere. So I had to literally advertise on the Canto, which is a bit like Craigslist. And so I ended up but I realized that's exactly where I needed to be. And, that was 7 years ago. And from where I was 7 years ago, and the clients and the men that came to me, to the men that come to me now and that I work with now, and seeing like just this kind of arc, this flourishing of the masculine men deeply desire to be with women, to know women, and they are so deeply afraid of us, and just seeing the growth in the masculine, like I shared with you earlier, I feel like there's this tenderness now between all of us in really wanting to get to know ourselves, get to know each other. And again, not in the sense of commercially what we've been taught or told men and women is or are or supposed to be, but just who we are in front of each other. And, that's the work for me now. And that's the work both professionally and personally is to can I be with you, as a man? Can I be with you as a woman? Like, who are we to each other? What does connection really, really mean? And I think that's what the work, that's what shadow work has led me to, what really deeply understanding erotic intelligence and our own erotic innocence. Like, this is what I really feel like right now for men and women. Like, we're playing with each other in, the most beautiful, innocent way. And also, like, there's this fierceness that is coming through in the masculine. I love the work that you're bringing out, Jacob, because it's reflecting on what I'm understanding and seeing energetically in the realms of the masculine, of this real fierceness coming through. But of course, having sat with you personally too, I know the tenderness that actually is the foundation to that fierce, front-facing representation that you bring out in your work. And I'm like, this is what it is. This is what it is. And it's just really beautiful.
Thank you for sharing all of that. That's really beautiful to hear your journey and the arc and how men sort of found you, and really the importance of the fierceness of the masculine, but what that, for me, the range of like having the fierceness kind of gives me this ability to reach into the tenderness as well. And when you're speaking about these ways of our shadow wanting to express itself, what I've found is the more I get to know the shadow aspects of self, and I find safe and appropriate places to build those channels of expression, the more I'm able to do it in a way that is fierce yet loving. And in the past, it either had to be fierce or loving. Yeah. And I really had these like this or that, whereas it's like it's me holding the tension between the fierceness and the love, and actually making sure that they stay. There is that acknowledgement of they are connected.
I love that. I love that you use that word intention too, because, I'm obsessed with language. So to be intentional is to be in tension. Right. And so, and this is the thing, and this is why we tend to go into polarities, because it's actually hard to hold tension.
Yep.
It's actually hard to hold that resonance of this and that. Like, how do we hold both? Like, try this and that. Whether it's, I can have it all and nothing. I can be it all and nothing. I just feel that resonance in your body. Like, it's like a percolating kettle, you know? And so we have to allow for the body to be open and expansive to be able to hold tension. Most of the time we tend to close off and contract when we try and hold tension. But that's actually when we end up going into polarity. But absolutely right. Like, I like to call it straddling the extremes. And, you know, and this is ultimately what I get called witchy or shamanic a lot. This is the first time I've ever said that out in public. But just for the sake of what I'm saying, so in shamanic medicine, you know, we call it the middle path or the middle way, and this is what I really speak to when I'm talking about straddling the extremes. And again in Tantra, we call it totality or non-duality. So we break down the world of polarity, and we really embrace the understanding and the acknowledgement that we are all and we are nothing all at once, right? And this is what intention is being all and nothing all at once. And you know, this is where there's ecstasy, and this is where there's agony, and this is where there's the bliss, and this is where, you know, the divine comedy ultimately.
Yes.
But you know, holding that tension, I think that's, you know, what we're talking about, like just the collective, like we're in that tension now. Like we're in that midpoint of like, oh, what's going to happen next, you know? And that's for us to decide.
Yeah. I don't know if I shared, but like, yeah, a lot of my work has come through ceremonies with the plants. And there was one particular ceremony where I got shown the hilarity of the two truths, and the two truths were, it's all here for you, but none of it's yours.
Yeah.
And I was like,
Yeah.
And I remember, and then like for me, polarity was a really strong guiding force in rebalancing and calibrating a lot of the guilt and shame I held around the destruction that men had done and continue to do. I'm not saying that we're out of the woods yet with that. And I then had to cultivate this fierceness, almost coax it out of my body. Hey, like it's okay to come back out. Like literally go in, find it, and then like teach it that it's okay, and then like almost create the structural integrity for it to have a place to be.
And, you know, again, your languaging. Yeah. Because I call it energetic integrity, but ultimately, like you're speaking to the body's structural integrity, that's your nervous system integrity. And it enables the capacity for energetic integrity. If you don't have the nervous system capacity, you do not have the capacity for energetic integrity. And, you know, the dynamic that you were just speaking to, you know, I call it hedonic adaptation, and this is ultimately about hedonism. And this is about so in what I've experienced within the masculine, like you were saying, is that ultimately the fear of their own sex and their own power and their own strength, because most men have had and seen and even experienced the shadow of that power, that sex, that strength. And they've either seen it perpetrated or expressed through the masculine or being perpetrated against women. And so in that, it kind of reverberates as a fear towards women as well, in the sense of, I don't want to be that man towards women, and do women hate me as a man because of the things that they've experienced? And so one of the things that I really learned early on in my work in Tantra and working with men is their fear of their sex, their fear of their power, the fear of their fierceness, and they overcompensate this with what I call the nice guy epidemic. You know, they just want to be good guys and they want to be nice guys, and actually they're just scared, and rightly so, because they had yet to be taught how to be a man, how to feel confident, solid, safe within their own sex, within their own power, within their own strength. And so, of course, a woman would never be able to feel safe in that context. But yeah, I don't know where I was going with that, but yeah.
No, that's all like really, because like I definitely was the nice guy. Like that was definitely, I'd learnt that part of me was wrong. I remember getting caught watching porn when I was 10 and my mum said it was disgusting. My dad told me, you shouldn't be watching that shit, mate. I then another part of it was like it got exposed to the rest of my family and my grandparents are questioning me about it.
That you were watching porn?
Yeah. And like I'm 12 or 13 and I literally Googled boobs and sex on Google back in the Google images. This was before the epidemic of, all of the high quality porn. But like I was like, my curiosity and my sex was moving through my body, or the sexual energy, and I didn't know where to go, what to do with it. And like for me, my sexuality, like a lot of the work, even the medicine work, led me to like these deeper, darker places of myself, which were really access points to my sexuality. And that, I remember when Meg kind of found her way through sexual liberation and self-pleasure and all of these things, I then had to not match her, but then I had to go on my own little journey of like, what does pleasure mean to me? And what does pleasure mean to me alongside her pleasure in our relationship? And how do we dance in these experiences that we're having? And I read a book called Tantric Sex for Men, and the thing that I took most from it, which is probably something that I need right now in my life, which is it's all about, can you relax into the pleasure rather than almost like hold on to it and try to like withhold it and then release it. And
what is your definition of pleasure?
For me, when you said that, it was like pleasures. It's for soft people. It's for people that it's instant. I instantly harden when you say pleasure.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, I don't do pleasure.
Yeah. And how many men are there like, I don't do pleasure?
Yeah. I don't like.
Even women, actually. I remember I was dinner with some girlfriends years and years and years ago, and someone said making love, and one of the girls were like, oh, what the fuck are you talking about making love? Like, you fuck, you don't make love. And I was like, that's really curious. But again, that's our relationship to our own sense of eroticism when, again, like I said, you harden at pleasure.
And even the second part that just came out, that was the initial hardening. But the second part right now, if I was to be honest with you, and this is very alive in my relationship right now with Meg, is like, I just don't have time for it. That's the actual, that's the belief that's there. And I do harden. Yeah. And I think that comes into like actually not just pleasure, but pleasure equals like relaxation. It equals nourishment. It equals revitalization. And they're all of the things that I've found hardest to consciously give myself without some form of sickness or some form of fracture in my physical, mental or emotional health.
Yeah. And it just really moves me to hear you speak to that, because again, it's something that comes up so often for men, pretty much all the men that I've worked with, this kind of essentially not allowed to rest unless I've earned it, or I'm sick, or I've worked really hard. And I remember with my partner, when we first met, we accidentally ended up in a group therapy session together. We thought we were going to some kind of workshop, but it was actually a group therapy session. But it was really amazing because I can't remember what the question was, but anyway, he said that he wasn't fun. And I laughed because he's like the most fun man I've ever met. And I was like, why do you think you're not fun? And he had said that, because I'm like, you're always planning things for us. Like, he's got me doing things I would never even dream of doing. And that, I'm like, and he's like, oh yeah, I do that because I think I'm not fun. And it's really interesting, how men see themselves, or how you might see yourself, as yourself in relation to your partner or in relation to those around you. But I think one of the things that men have really been indoctrinated to believe is that their pleasure is not their own. Like, I think as women, we can claim our pleasure. Like, we deserve to feel good. We're worth it. Maybelline's been telling us for decades that, we're worth it. But what messaging have men been given around their pleasure? very little. It's secret, it's private, it's naughty maybe.
I think even when you were talking about the maybe, like I think it's like I'm thinking of all the beer ads, like pleasure was a cold beer at the end of a hard day's work.
Yeah, right, you earned it.
You earned it for a hard-earned thirst. Like that was the culture that I grew up in.
Is that actually a tagline?
Yeah, it's for a hard-earned thirst. You need a fresh cold beer, and the best cold beer is Victoria Bitter. And I'm like, oh yeah. But that's, when you talk about pleasure, I think this is a cool conversation, and I'd love to know more about, what you've experienced or what you've seen in male clients without giving away everyone's names and information. But like, what are some of the common threads? Because for me, it's like, yeah, my pleasure comes after the hard work. My pleasure comes after the suffering. Once I've earned it, then I can have it. And that's translated into sex massively for me. And it's something that I'm constantly calibrating, is where I can't enjoy it until I know that Meg's gotten off, until she's orgasmed.
Yeah, and it's so funny because as women, like, we know this, and then it doesn't even feel about us anymore, because I'm like, you're only trying to please me so that you can get off. And it becomes this murky situation, and one of the things that, in terms of like sexuality and sexual expression, that just seems very, very, like, my background is academic first and foremost, then clinical, then tantric, right? So, and I just preface that so that I'm speaking across the board for the masculine, not necessarily specific clients or anything like that. But what just seems to be really apparent is guilt, blame, and shame when it comes to sexual experience for men. Sexual guilt seems to be like a huge thing, whether it's men have engaged in porn too much, or porn they felt ashamed about observing, or because their partner isn't happy about them watching porn. One of the things that when I had the O-Room and I had men calling me up, one of the things I found really profound was, first of all, because the O-Room was just out the front, we didn't have a neon sign saying open in the window. They were like, oh, like, what is this? Like, what's this about? And I'm like, oh, we are a holistic health practice, pleasure-centered. So this is very much about understanding your pleasure as a man or a woman, blah, blah, blah. Oh, is there happy endings? I'm like, no, we don't do happy endings. We do breath work. I teach you and explain to you about lingam massage, about your body, about the prostrate, all of the things. And they're like, oh, okay, like really, like, so the guys, they come in, hat down, like really sus. But when they walk out, like hat off, they've had a cup of tea with me, and just this shame around experiencing your own pleasure. And 99.9% of men, I'm like, are you going to speak to your partner about this? Oh God, no. She'd totally freak out if I was to tell her that I've come and done this. And that was something that made me feel so sad, and really I kind of went on a bit of a crusade of like, as women, we have to take responsibility for our sexuality, right? There is I think it's quite commonly known that we are the stronger sex, the fairer sex or whatever, in the sense that because we are literal incubators for human beings, we do have a stronger, bigger energy capacity. But that's not to overpower men. That's actually to match their strength. Like I always say, the only thing that rivals a man's strength is a woman's rightful expression of her sexuality. But the thing is, we have been infantilized as women, so we get given permission to be overtly and hypersexual without any responsibility. So men are there like a frightened kittens. They're like frightened kittens because there's just stunning women everywhere, all the time. Everywhere you look, women are just stunning. But men are like, oh my God, I can't look. I can't have this natural feelings and expressions of seeing women everywhere. And then you get the men that do look or do say something. And this is obviously not speaking to men that are being vulgar and disrespectful, but men that are just appreciating women and, and then they get vilified for that. And so men just retreat further and further into the shadow, into the guilt, blame and shame. Oh, I shouldn't have felt that. shouldn't have looked at that, shouldn't have seen that. And from a tantric perspective, and everything from Tantra begins with our 5 senses, so they start to disconnect from what they hear, and so they get into their logical mind. They disconnect from what they feel, whether that's touch or sensation. They disconnect from what they taste, and so men start to disconnect from ultimately their intuition, their own sort of compass, their own internal compass, and they have to then go to the logical mind. And that's such a shame. And I think there's a big, in the space that we're in now, there's such a great opportunity for us as women to not only deeply, further empower ourselves and reach a deeper understanding of our sexual energy and our sexual expression and the role we actually have, but how we can actually do that now together with men, and really kind of, I'm trying not to sound too spiritual.
Don't go too spiritual. Don't do it.
I'm not gonna.
I love it. If you'll have to listen to Valan, because Valan went there. He went deep. We were talking about I was like, I had to hold on because it was like we were going there. But
I'm like, okay, Anthea, right. But really, I deeply believe that we are here to feed each other. We are here to hold each other. And again, with my partner and I, we have gone to the absolute depths, to the point where I'm like, we're not getting back from this. And every time we get back from it, it's a new, deeper, more innocent level of intimacy. And I think maybe as I'm getting older and understanding everything else is just fluff when it's just you and another human being, when it's just you and your partner. There are moments you and Meg have experienced and shared that will never be articulated to anybody but the two of you. And that's what's sacred between you and Meg, and your experience together, and the collective eroticism that you two share. And everybody has those moments between the people that they love, as moments that they will never be able to articulate other than with those that they shared that moment with. And I think that's where the magic is, in terms of what we collaborate with and bring into fruition, just like with the gathering of men and the retreats that I host. For me, my deepest desire is to get people to just experience that feeling, that moment of this is what love is, this is what intimacy is. If you're this way inclined, this is what a spiritual experience might feel like. Where, it's no different really, and ultimately to when you go to a concert and everybody's chanting and singing together, right? And
I live for those moments.
Oh, you live for it. It's stunning. And you don't forget those moments. And again, whether it's in an ecstatic and bliss like that, or even in those moments of grief when you're with someone that's just lost a loved one, or they've just heard some news and you're just there with them, it's all the same. It's all the same eros. It's all the same energy and intimacy that we are moving on the spectrum of. And again, the tension between, our ecstasy and our pleasure and our grief and our pain, the tension is here, and it's a lot to hold. It's a lot to hold. And so it's like, okay, I'm going to just go drink a beer, a hard and cold beer.
Definitely. It's funny you say that, because Meg had she did her first in-person thing for ages. She's been online. She's like, I'm going to do some in-person stuff. I'm ready. And she held a beautiful thing. And I feel a similar depth in your devotion to the work around this coming home to each other between men and women, and this we love each other and we really want what's best for each other. And if we can find that place, we can really go there. And that's that to me is the polarity and the passion, and then the depth of intimacy. Oh, yeah, I'm here for that.
And that's to me anyway. That's just what it's all about. I have this funny thing of we're all gods pretending to be human.
Yeah.
And, you know, and so when our human comes off, when the masks comes off and we have our glimpses of the gods in each of us, like, I'm like, oh, that's when we really get to play. That's when the innocence really comes through. And when you have like in-person events like with the retreats and the gathering of men and things like that, I guess you would know as a facilitator, like you even as a facilitator, you get to see things in people that they probably wouldn't even be able to see in themselves. That's definitely what I love facilitating retreats, is like I get to see the movement of the eros throughout the days as people are shifting and changing and the things that are happening. I get to, it's almost like being a bit of a conductor of the orchestra, which I love because, of course, you know, energy is what is conducted, and we get to see that, and I've got fingers in all sorts of pies. Like I was saying, like when you ask me what do I do, I'm like, it really depends on who you're talking to. But beyond all of those labels, like to everyone, I really try and just be human. And then beyond being human, I'm just like, I swear to God, it's my dharma just to be in love with life. Yeah.
Can I love this life like never before?
Yeah.
The thing with that I love, and like just like to circle back to claimed, was like I got to go in and do a thing called, Meg and I call it the healing your relationship to the masculine. I go and I hold the field of the masculine and give women the space to speak and express and be with the hurt, to be with the need, the yearn, the ache, and then to be with the honoring that they want to be able to, they inevitably find through revealing the hurt and the yearn. And what I took from that was this deep, like a deeper level of reverence and understanding of like, oh my goodness, like there is so much available to us when we take the time to be with each other, to be with, I think before earlier on in the podcast, you said to be with this. And that's one of a couple of the questions that Meg and I have in our sort of vocabulary is, what am I making this mean? And can I be with this? Yeah. And like, can I be with this? And, you know, a lot of the stuff that got shared was harrowing, and it was, the word that keeps coming is it was stunning. It was stunning to witness these women in their grief, in their harrowing distress, and not need to change or fix it or process it for them and just be there. But after it, I literally had to go and buy a beer, and I had to like, that was big. That was, and I was like, I was like, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to have a beer. And I'm just thinking, wow, like the pleasure piece that you're speaking to, I'm like, wow, like for me, the work that we're doing is like, especially for me, the work that I'm doing and what I'm zooming out now from just working with men to feeling this pull to like create ceremony and spaces for this healing between us both is, like I need to honor myself within that ceremony as well. I need to find ways to be nourishing myself after, or having the, you know, integration seems to be a huge thing that I haven't really landed very well personally.
And I think you wouldn't be alone. I think most men and women came to me when I first started the O Room is because they'd actually been on these like massive plant journeys or deep healing ceremonies, and the integration bit got completely missed out for whatever reason. And you know, I don't exercise at all, but what I did learn when I had a personal trainer was, you know, when your muscles are growing and they're tearing, those rest days are really, really important. And this is what integration is as well, is, you know, your nervous system capacity, because ultimately what's happening, like, you know, with plant medicine, for example, your body is being flooded with oxytocin, so you suddenly feel so open and expanded. That is prep for the depths that you're about to fall into.
Get ready.
Get ready. And I know, and like I was saying, like the last plant medicine ceremony that I sat, and I was like, oh, this is taking a bit longer. And I was like, oh, it's taking very long. I was like, okay, I died in that one. And I was like, and really, really understood, you know, the more open we become, the deeper we go. And so integration is so important, as you were talking about structural integrity, you know, again, I've seen the spectrum of people being deeply traumatized because they haven't integrated properly, and that is about this is all happening on a deep cellular level, and we must really understand that. And I think that a lot of times we can see people's experiences, and it's really profound, and I want to have that experience, and which is really beautiful, but to also understand that plant medicine is a tool, and it is a medicine, and it's a very intelligent medicine. I don't know if I'm allowed to mention the. Can I mention?
Yeah.
So ayahuasca is what I facilitated in, and sat, and with Aya in particular, with the Shipibo people, it's known as the vine of death. So Aya, and so it's the mother plant, and she lays the ground for you, and she holds you, and so you have to be willing to let go or be dragged.
Yes.
And I think that, so on a biophysical level, what happens with ayahuasca is, so your body gets flooded with oxytocin, and because the body is so flooded with oxytocin, it's really, really open, and this is where all the healing then gets happened, because you're no longer in contraction. So all of the things that you've been repressing and hiding, it all comes up, but of course it all gets absorbed in that oxytocin. So you're not traumatized, essentially. But what does then happen is there's kind of a void or a space where all that blockages and trauma and shadows, or whatever you want to call it, was, and that needs to be acknowledged and observed and understood. And I think a lot of times when people are either consistently plant medicine after plant medicine before really understanding their lessons, before integrating, they regress right back, and it can be really dangerous. And I get a bit of an auntie about it, and just gotta be careful, you gotta be safe, but ultimately so that you actually get the lesson of the medicine. And I think it's such a powerful tool for people. I love ceremony. I think that I think everybody should sit at least one time.
I totally agree, and I like what you're saying. For me, integration is almost like honoring the sacredness of what you've just experienced. And I use this word. It still doesn't feel like the right word, but for me, it's fortification of the expansion that I've experienced. And quite often, I can see people have heart-opening, completely mind-altering. I am now this. I'm let go of everything, and it's almost like there's this. What I see happen at times is there's this, I'm now complete with that. I'm complete with that old way. It's this is, we're human. We have a relationship with the world. We're going to continually grow, evolve, die, be reborn in many different ways. But for me, the journeys that I've done, and ironically, ayahuasca gave me a connection to the dark feminine.
Yes, well, she is the dark feminine. Aya is the dark mother. That's exactly what she is.
Talk about fucked up shit. I've had some incredibly pleasurable experience working with ayahuasca. I felt I felt like a dirty little whore. Man, it was the weirdest. Yeah, it was, and I don't say that that makes me feel comfortable saying, because I'm a man and I'm responsible and I do masculine.
But I love the dirty little whore in a man.
Yeah, and it was bizarre to actually be in such a place of openness where my stories couldn't stop me from receiving the depth of pleasure in those moments. Crazy for me, because I'd worked so heavily with Wachuma, with San Pedro, and had such incredibly beautiful fortification of my structure.
The man.
The big girthy cactus. And I learned so much about myself through that. And then this whole other part of me came online through my journeys with the beautiful ayahuasca. And I was like, but the lessons and the understanding came through me sitting in the void and being with the contemplation of what I experienced, rather than being let me have another go at that.
Yeah, and this is the journey of the masculine, is sitting in the void, is being with what is, as you said. And this is where men fight themselves, like you were saying, not fixing, not doing, not finding a list to go and mark off, not reaching for the thing that I can say I've accomplished that, I've done that, to just find some time to sit in the void. And this is where men fortify their internal feminine, their intuition, their creative capacity, their erotic intelligence. And of course, it is expressed so differently to the feminine. But it's stunning because, and women know this, women know when they're in the presence of a man that's deeply integrated in his feminine. He just has a different resonance. And I, again, you're one of those men. I'm surrounded by those men, and I get a lot of comments about me being a bit of a masculine enabler, and I'm deeply devoted to the masculine. I have 2 boys, so it's absolutely my dharma to be devotional to the masculine, but also, as women, I think we've been kind of given this sort of idea that we have to, if we want men to be men, like we have to beat them into submission and we have to tell them what to do, because if we don't tell them what to do, then how are they going to be the men that we want them to be? And it's like, actually, when I stepped back as a mother, as a lover, and just observed the men in my life and watched my nervous system crumble to pieces as I realized how petrified I was in the context of strong men. Give me a weak man any day. I'm like, oh yeah, that's fine, But a strong man, I could not deal with it, and I feel like that's this collective shadow of women, of like, we're actually very much afraid of strong men, because a strong man's going to say no to us. Mm-hmm. Okay, a strong man's going to tell us what to do, and we're going to have to submit if he's a safe man, right?
Love that. I love that final piece, because I've been really sitting with. I've been stewing since our conversation. I've been like, how do I determine a strong and safe man? What is and I sit in that void quite a lot myself. I'm a very contemplative man. I'm very vigilant then, and I'm very attuned energetically, which can sometimes make me a bit, it can really affect my ability to be present if I'm around a lot of people. So not everything's got a shadow, but the piece that I really find is a disciplined man isn't always a safe man, in the fact that if he hasn't been initiated into the depths of his, like, if he hasn't actually done the shadow revealing work, the initiatory work, the rites of passage into his responsibility, his sacred duty that comes with the strength, you can discipline day in, day out, and you can practice over the parts of you that are broken and hurt and wounded. And I know a lot of guys that are incredibly disciplined, but they lack the safety because they are a victim of their own kind of, the discipline is a glorified control of their own parts of themselves that they're scared to actually let out.
Are you open to me challenging you on the word discipline?
The word discipline doesn't feel right, so that's why I'm like trying. I would love to be challenged on that, because I feel a little biased because I don't like discipline. Well,
interestingly, I love the word discipline because it means disciple, so to be a student of something.
Okay.
And so the dynamic you're describing is actually routine, and men love routine and they feel safe in routine.
Yes, okay.
So a routine man, a man that can tick off the boxes and do the things, he's up at 5 a.m., blah, 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 he's in bed by 9, he's done his gym workout, and that's a routined man. Okay, and men in their 24-hour cycle are good at being routine. In fact, they're not very good at being outside of their routine.
Yes.
A disciplined man is very different, because a disciplined man is a student of something. And when you're a student, when you're learning, there's not necessarily routine. There is not necessarily 1 + 1 = 2, which makes men very uncomfortable if 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Because we got to check those boxes, right? We got things to do. We got money to earn. We've got houses to build and people to save. So the disciplined man comes with discernment, because he has learnt to navigate the uncertainties of being a student. Like you say, the initiatory path, the initiate is the student. He's listening, he's learning, he's feeling his way. The routine man is a man that's living by what I call painting by numbers, right? If I do this, then this happens and this happens. But most men know they followed all the rules in the world and they still haven't got what they want.
Yes. Yes, totally.
And so I think that men can fall into the trap of, well, I've done all the things and therefore she should respect me and she should love me. And but routine doesn't mean that you're safe.
Yeah.
Routine means you're predictable. And this is also, again, routine just means you're familiar. Routine means I know exactly what you're going to do when you walk into the door. I know exactly what you're going to say. And I can be safe in that. But that doesn't make you a safe man. It means I feel safe in the predictability and the familiarity of our dynamic. I don't think any man is safe. I don't think any man should be safe.
I love that. You've changed my whole. You've changed me. I was angry at discipline, and now I can. When you said disciple, I was like, oh, I like that. But routine.
My ego serves me well.
Yeah, but the more because I hate morning routines, and I hate the rigidity of it, and I'm very much a don't put me in a box. And
Are you Pisces?
No, I'm Capricorn.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Which is bizarre. I was so routined.
You're earthy. You might. There's a lot of water in your chart. Okay. Anyway, we digress.
But I used to be a routine person. I used to be so structured, and I realized that I was deeply unhappy in that.
Yeah, routine keeps men safe. That doesn't mean they are safe, for example, right?
Yeah.
It means it keeps them in their head where they're safe to think, because the way men's minds work is it's categorical. Everything belongs in its box. So they've got their work box, they've got their lover box, their friend box. And so routine enables them to stay in those boxes. The minute it's out, they're like, oh shit, what box am I supposed to be in? And then real feelings start to come up.
Okay, I do have places where I'm very routined. Like if someone stacks the dishwasher wrong, it's on. I have my. Okay, we're revealing a few things. We'll say
Don't worry, I completely resonate with you 100%.
Yeah.
100%. I have some very weird OCD foibles.
Yeah. If you ask me where anything that I own is, I can tell you exactly where to get it from the house. I'm very particular in my own right. So sorry to anyone that I've judged around routine. I've got my own shadow. I'm human.
You know where all the things in your house is. You bad man, you. Is that how you express your dirty little whore?
Yeah, that's it.
Being very routine.
Being very so submissive. I wanted to come back to the safe piece, because one thing that I said to Meg, because I'm very clear on the wild man in me. I'm very clear on who he is, and I refuse to ever put him in a cage ever again, because it was the thing that it crushed me putting him in that cage. And I said, I said this to Meg, I said, if I ever stop doing things that make you think I'm a little bit fucking crazy, I'm pretty sure this relationship wouldn't work as good as it does. I'm going to get a head tattoo before our baby's born. I want to get a hawk on the back of my head. And I'm just like so turned on by getting this tattoo.
Why a hawk?
Yeah, I love that. Like they're one of the fastest birds, and they're like just fierce.
Yeah.
And they're so aerodynamic. And I love the eagle, and I love the condor, and I love the hummingbird, and they've all been influenced though by certain other people telling me what they are. Whereas the hawk is just,
it's your own.
It's got this energy to it that I've felt, and I don't know why I love it, but I love it. And I also like to go and do crazy shit. Like I want to run across, there's this race in Morocco, and I've got a 5-year goal of being able to fly first class with my wife, Meg, and whether we have 1 or 2 children by then. And I have this vision of them dropping me off at the start of this 6 marathons in 6 days across the Sahara Desert.
Yeah.
And I just imagine them saying bye to me, them hopping on a plane, flying and staying in this 5-star hotel where Meg's just like in pure decadence, and I run across this desert, and like I arrive, which maybe I'm just a masochist. Is that the right word?
It depends.
Yeah.
Is it going to be painful?
Like there's something about the suffering, but then like being received.
Yeah, I think this is a natural part of the masculine. I find like if a man hasn't claimed his need to compete, he won't make a lot of money.
Yes.
And this is just a masculine. What's the word? It's just an inherent it's compulsion in a man, because if we're just talking about just, the fight or flight response, the hunter-gatherer aspect, men have evolved to go out and hunt and gather. That, I believe, this is just an Antheaism, this is just my opinion, but I think that energy still has to go somewhere. And I think in today's society, where men put most of their energy is in the work that they do, therefore competition is going to be huge.
Yes.
And so, I think again, in healthy male relationships, you see that camaraderie, you see that ability to compete with each other and actually enjoy that healthy competition. And I see the shadow of that in men that either they don't throw their hat in the ring at all, and they're just there on the sidelines, pointing and judging and all of the things.
Yeah.
Or they are really down on themselves, and they become emotionally impotent, and that becomes really sad. And I think if we as women start to actually, and this is like this where I speak to, like, in terms of men being safe or unsafe. The minute I think a few things. First, I think that we're always somehow trying to get life or relationships to be binary. It's this and it's that. If I do this, this will be the outcome. If I'm submissive, then he's going to pay for my dinner. I don't know, whatever the hell it might be.
Yeah.
But just this idea that love is binary, relationship is binary, intimacy is binary, that's not true. Of course it's not true. We're not binary as humans.
Yeah.
And I don't even mean that in any political sense. I just mean, like, we are multi-dimensional, multifaceted, complex human beings.
Yes.
So the idea that the most intimate dynamics of our life is going to be this, like, if you know her love language, then everything's going to be okay. Well, that's immature.
We call that weaponizing formulas, like the love language, the attachment styles, the polarity, the 3 stages of relating. They're all incredible frameworks.
Yeah, but
if you use them in a mathematical sense, you're going to have a pretty basic time.
It's going to be so basic.
Yeah, and I think you're going to end up not really getting to where you're not wanted to go.
Get to being intimate with someone. You're not going to meet to intimacy because, and again, I've seen this of, like, okay, as long as I check the boxes for men, I've checked all her boxes, and I buy her flowers on a Friday, and she's still not happy because she can't feel you.
That's the most brutal thing to hear. Like, that's kind of I don't know whether it's the trigger for when Meg's finally had enough. She's like, I can't feel you, and I'm like, but I'm doing all the the things.
And there though, because what the fuck does it mean when someone says I can't feel you? What does it actually mean? So I'll speak for myself as a woman when I'm saying that to anyone. When I can't feel you, it's like there's a dissonance between us. We're not vibing. The vibe check is off.
Yes.
Right. It's when I'm saying I can't feel you. Deeper than that, though, is I long to connect with you.
Yes, there's a desire there.
There's a desire to connect. When I'm like, I can't feel you. Yes, you've given me flowers, but there is a bloody canyon between us.
Yes.
Yeah, we're with each other every day, but where's the presence?
What do you feel that when, for instance, in your own experience or what you've experienced working with people, I think this is kind of a really nice sort of closing it down into some actual sort of practicality things for guys listening. I know for me what it means when Meg says, I can't feel you. Normally it's that I'm withholding or not willing to reveal a vulnerability. There's something there that I'm scared to share her because if I do, I feel like I'm going to be wrong, rejected, abandoned, or told that I'm bad. That's essentially for me as a man. But what do you feel? Is there anything that you see in men when a woman can't feel him, even though he's doing all the right things? What is the general sense that you've kind of found in men when they aren't really bringing their feeling to a space, but they're ticking the boxes?
Yeah, I think that's also quite nuanced, even though I was quite flippant 2 minutes ago.
Go general.
But yeah, I think there's a few things, but generally, men long to be nurtured. They want to be nourished. They want to be respected. They want to be felt. And more often than not, we as women are coming at them from a parental space, dare I say it. And so they immediately regress into little boys. It's like, I'm not going to tell you then. If you're going to be like this, I'm not going to say the thing then. And then, usually their partner is like trying to coax it out of them. You never talk to me. And he retreats to his man cave, and he has to retreat to his man cave because a few things about men and women, which I find really, really interesting, is that first of all, we experience time differently.
Yes.
And we experience sound differently.
Yes.
And the other thing to that is the tone of a woman's voice actually is a stress response to men because of their eardrums and the way they hear sound. So like, I really love when people talk about like women nagging and men saying it's not that. That's just the language that they've used, but it's actually this stress response in their inner ear that causes the sympathetic nervous system to go into a fight or flight response. And so just understanding, like, just using different tones and intonations with each other really, really changes the way the vibe check, right? And the other thing I think as well in understanding that is when a man closes off, again, like you said, he's probably scared of rejection and abandonment. And the last thing, though, is he's scared of being castrated. He's actually scared of penetrating the field. He might be very, very, like, sure of himself, confident, but that a point at which where he has to go in and penetrate, he's like, oh no, like I've had my dick chopped off so many times. Why would I do that? And, I think that, again, as women, we don't realize this. My ex-husband, he said it to me often, and it was like, I had to humble myself. Like, oh God, I really did do that. It was terribly critical. Terribly critical. And, it was only after we split up that he was like, I was too afraid to say things to you in case you had something counter to say about that. And I was like, oh, fuck. It's so little of just listening or just shutting my mouth. One of my very, very, very old, this is probably going to be super inappropriate, but I'm going to say it anyway.
I think we can go there.
One of my very, very old friends, like, she was actually the lover of my eldest son's father at the time, ex-lover. We became friends. Anyway, and she was like, Anthea, the best advice I can give you about men is to know when to shut your mouth and open your legs. And although that's totally inappropriate, and I don't subscribe to that at all, what I did take away from that is for us as women to take a pause, right? Because, again, our data processing is different. Our left and right hemispheres are closer together than men's, for example. And so we can jump from intellectual information to emotional information very, very quickly, whereas men take time to process emotional information. And so women just taking a pause and allowing to process your own emotions will allow him to process his emotions as well. And then the other really easy kind of communication technique is it's a transactional communication technique, which is speaking to men via their data processing. So they data process logically, which is the thinking space. So what do you think about that? And, for men speaking to women, how they process, which is the emotional space. So how do you feel about that? Darling, I want to go for a beer with the boys. How do you feel about that? Oh, darling, I feel really sad about that. What do you think about that? And whilst that does seem very transactional, because it is, we're speaking to the way that actually feels right on our nervous system, right? Because triggering simply is when our nervous system feels like, I can't deal with this. Yeah. So if we're using language that is actually soothing to the nervous system, we can have really powerful conversations that doesn't have to end in tears in a bad way.
Yeah, it's almost learning the subtle differences in language to be able to love each other better.
100%. Like my partners, I'm like, we have this thing. It's like, do you want 5 minutes? and we'll go lie in bed, or like, especially when we're both really busy, like we'll start like, do you want 5 minutes? And, 7 years and it's, do you want 5 minutes? And it's just to kind of get back in resonance with each other. We all have our default settings, and especially when we're under stress, we go back to default settings. We're human. That's just what happens. Life is life, and it be lifing right now, and it's busy. And so having a space for you, if you're in a couple, having your 5 minutes, whatever that might look like, together to just reconnect and recalibrate and get back in resonance with each other, I think is really, really powerful. But yeah, you can never communicate enough. That's what I was saying. Every time I'm like, do you want 5 minutes? Is like, is it going to be a talking 5 minutes or just a quiet 5 minutes?
Yeah. That's how I was thinking that. I was like, is it 5 minutes of just like laying down and like close? Yeah. It's funny you say that, though, because like I've had to become better at asking for what I need, and it's a two-way street, but I love the way that you're speaking to it from a woman's perspective, because I've always been like, the man needs to do this, and this. But for me, the thing that can actually soften the tonality thing, that's a huge thing for me. I'm just learning from you, but some grounding touch before words are spoken actually allows me to feel a little deeper rather than be in my reactivity.
100%.
So physical touch is huge for me.
Yeah.
And it has to be nourishing. Light, fine touch is like
feather touching.
Oh, it's like too much. I freak out. I'm like, oh, what is that? Like, but if it's a grounding touch or like hands on the shoulders and just earthing me.
Yeah.
Hey, my love. What? And then the dialogue opens. It's like, oh, okay, I'm available.
Yeah, and again, just because of those differences in time, data processing, and even the way in which we take in language, just as a woman, like if you want to have a conversation with your partner of just saying, hey, like I would like to talk about X. When would you like to talk about that? Because again, especially if we're anxious attachers, we want to talk about everything now.
It's alive in the space. I need to talk about it.
We want to pacify that anxiety now.
Yes.
And again, if men are... If you're a man that finds it hard to process your emotions really quickly, that's going to be really overwhelming. And most men want to meet their partner's need immediately, so they're in conflict in meeting their own need of like, I don't know how to have this conversation, I don't even know what word you just used, I don't even know how I'm feeling right now, to share, I really want to meet your needs. And so just asking for a time to have those conversations, that was my biggest flex in maturing as a woman, was honestly of like knowing when to have the conversation. Like if he's just come in and I've had a busy day and I'm just like, blah, blah, I'm like, I'm going to wait. So I'd actually write down the things I wanted to talk to him about until it was appropriate time to talk to him about them. And I think that's really, really, really massive.
Yeah, that is a beautiful, like, it's not, I can't talk to him about this ever, which is almost like abandoning your needs. It's like, hey, my nervous system is capable of holding this, and I'm going to make sure I write them down. So when the right time presents itself, or when I communicate, I want to speak about these, and we both set a time that we agree upon, that there is an invitation and an actual choice made by both of us to step in. And that's, like, you learn that through long-term relating. It becomes part of the... how you relate with each other. And, and with that, then you know when you're out of resonance. You know, like, something is up, because the baseline of the relationship is such that you are doing your little dance together, and you know whose moves are what. And so you also then feel like, oh, that's not a step that we usually do, or that's a new step that we usually, that's a new step that I haven't learnt yet. And you kind of get to meet each other as you're evolving. Those steps doesn't become threats in the relationship. They become inquiries when you become better communicators with each other. Just one last thing I want to say. Please.
And this is about emotional reasoning in men, right? So most men think they're very logical beings. Okay, but most men are emotional reasoners. So we all make our decisions from an emotional space. But what men are really good at, because they're much better at processing logical information, is that they turn their emotions into intellect or intelligence gathering.
Yes.
And so it sounds so like, and I for most women I've spoken to about this, where, you know, she's losing her mind and he's there very cool, calm and collected, like, you know, and she's like, I don't understand why he's just said something completely out of pocket and he's just cool as a daisy. And I'm so triggered, and so, because men are really good at intellectualizing their emotions. So I guess, just as a public service announcement, that if you consider yourself to be very intellectual and not particularly emotional as a man, I would ask yourself whether you're in fact emotional reasoning. And again, for women, you know, so much space to actually come out of your emotions and into your intellect and into your reason. Yeah.
Yeah, they get to coexist. They get to be both. You know, we draw on both of them. I think that, so once again, it's like the tension.
Yes, every time it comes back to that, straddling the extremes and holding the tension. Yeah.
Yes. This has been such a nourishing conversation for me, and learning a little more about myself, and learning. I love how much you love words, and I love I think that is such a, I don't know whether that Meg's very similar in that, and I'm learning to respect and love words more, and love what they mean, and be able to use vocabulary to articulate how I am feeling and what is going on for me. So that's what I'm taking away from this. Some of that, yeah, and the tone thing as well. Like, wow, like, yeah, the sound of a woman's voice can be alarming to me. Like, oh, something's wrong. So I get to communicate and work with that as well.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Jacob. I really appreciate being here, and having this conversation has been super fun, and I've really enjoyed listening to you share.
Thank you. I really feel there's like I'm learning I was so heavy on the men's work. Men are here to serve men, and I think there is a necessity for that. Men need to go out and be in these spaces and rub shoulders and learn about manhood. But there's this whole other dynamic that has come online for me, which is around coming home and learning how to be with women, be with a woman, and be with the intricacies of a relationship. Yeah,
I think that's really where the profound healing for men and women happen, is in those co-creative spaces. We are each other's, complementary opposites, and so we will trigger each other, but we also have the antidote to that trigger.
Yes, I love it. Thank you so much. It's been so good. I'm sure there'll be more conversations down the line. I feel like we'll be having a few more of these somewhere along maybe season 3, whenever that happens next year. I'm going to put all of Anthea's details down below. Is there anything that you want to shout out or pitch to the community right now?
Love each other.
I love it.
Yeah, and for men, I don't do therapeutic mentoring as a whole, but my books are open for men still. If they do want some space to be held or bums to be spanked, I'm your chick. But otherwise, I for women, and I've done this really deliberately, is I do business mentoring, and we have the bad bitch economics that I teach, and it's really understanding how to really integrate your masculine so that you can really feel good and feel liberated in business. So my 2 words are providence and liberation, and I believe that when we receive the masculine, the men in our lives, and we receive our internal masculine, we inherently get divine providence and divine liberation. And so if you are a woman starting in business, or you're wanting to transition or change, or you just want someone to talk to about how the hell you're doing business, I'm also your chick.
How good. Thank you so much for being here. Bless up, beautiful humans. I hope you enjoyed this episode. We'll see you next week. Big love.
Thank you.
Peace.